It's not in the cards for you. I'm pretty good at insults, and I got the internet and a lot of free time.
So tonight I thought we would go through the section of virtual worm that is worm, same, same difference. Ignore any sounds of crashing in the background. My cat's got a new set of boxes. The background noise is supposed to be filtered, but there's a lot of cats, well, not a lot of cats, but they're enjoying their boxes. So part of virtual worm, what's up there is the one surviving blog post made by his mother. She used to have her own domain name back in 2012 or so, and it was just a general blog. But unfortunately, only one post survived on the Wayback Machine, and luckily for all of us, it is a post specifically about Lucas. On some level, I do feel bad for her. It's got to be hard to see your kid turn out like Lucas. Like that's got to be the biggest disappointment and embarrassment in your life. But you know, she is still his mother, and she probably does still love him for God knows what reason. Especially since he calls her a bitch and a cunt all the time. I mean, they've more or less cut him off by this point. They send him little cheap gifts, you know, on birthdays and holidays, but he claims he talks to them all the time and that they really, really care. But honestly, if they really, really cared, they'd get his ass out of the situation he's in and get him some actual help. They don't want to. He would fight it. They don't want to take it to court. They basically just try to forget that he exists. Part of the reasons that they cut him off, other than just his overall behavior towards everyone, was that he evidently, according to other family members that posted about it, made a lot of inappropriate remarks toward his niece, who was around 11 or 12 at the time. And that was kind of the final straw for everybody in his family. So nobody really talks to him. They don't want anything to do with him. And with that in mind, Myrna's social media is fairly public. She is not hard to find. Do not go seek her out and bother her about Lucas. If you find her, his stepdad, his dad, his stepmom, any family members, don't bother them. They really don't want much of anything to do with him. And it does no good and just makes you look like an asshole to harass her about her fuck up of a kid. She knows he's a fuck up. She's well aware and she's trying to ignore it, hoping maybe he'll die before she does. But either way, don't go looking for her. If you do go looking for her, just look. Treat it like a zoo animal. Well, we actually don't treat Lucas much like a zoo animal. We kind of throw peanuts at him. But if you go looking for his family for whatever reason, don't and definitely don't try to interact with them or clue them in as to what Lucas is doing. They don't need that kind of bullshit. So anyway, the blog post she made was essentially about Lucas's childhood. Take some of what she says with a grain of salt because some of it is borderline medically impossible. But if there is some grain of truth to it, it does kind of indicate that maybe Lucas is just legitimately brain damaged. So let's start with the post. This was from 2012. She posted it November 21st, 2012, and her preface to it is as follows. I am a mother. I am a mother of a son with mental illness. Some days I want to scream. Some days I want to cry. Some days I want to hit someone. Some days I feel helpless and alone. That's fair. Mental illness takes a toll on everyone around you, especially if you're not able to get useful treatment. Mental illness knows no ethnic, religious, or economical boundaries. Everyone everywhere has a loved one, a mother, father, brother, sister, son, daughter, friend that's experienced a mental illness at some point in their lives. I'm hoping this blog serves more than that purpose. I want to reach those who feel they have nowhere to turn. I want to express my feelings without feeling guilt. I want to educate and support those who are in the trenches and think the climb back up is insurmountable. I want to introduce you to my beautiful son, Lucas. I am telling you his story as seen through my eyes. Now, it's worth noting here that Lucas has said over and over again that he goes back and forth. Uh, she I don't know how he really took it, but sometimes he takes it as she put my shit out there for everyone to see without my permission, and I hate her for it. And other times he just straight up says that she's lying and making it all up, and none of it's true. Um, I'm inclined to believe that there is a ring of truth to a lot of it, just based on Lucas's current behavior, and that will make a little more sense when it gets down into Myrna telling the story of what Lucas was like as a kid and how he acted around other kids. So Those that know Lucas and Lucas himself may see things different. Kind regards, Myrna Grigsby. And this is the only post that made it. Lucas was born November 27th, 1979 at 6:29 a.m. He weighed 7 pounds 1 ounce and was 21 inches long. When I heard that my then husband say, "We have a son," I knew instinctually that I was going to love this little thing like I'd never loved anything in my life. He was perfect. He was the most beautiful thing I've ever laid my eyes on. When the doctor laid him on my chest, I knew the stars were aligned. There was a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and that child would never, never want for anything. That didn't work out that way. Lucas was one of those babies that you read about. He only cried when he was hungry or wet. If he wasn't sleeping, he was smiling. He rolled over at 9 weeks. He slept through the night at 4 weeks. I had it made. I had the perfect child. Okay, yep. I mean, every new mom is kind of like that with their first one, but so, I can't get too annoyed with her for that. That's basically every mom talking about their first kid if their kid was like wanted. When Lucas was 10 months old, he got a rash on his body. It was the strangest looking thing you can imagine. I called the doctor and was told to bring him in. Before I could get there, the rash exploded. When the dark purple rings, in quotes, touched each other, they dissipated, but it quickly went into looking like someone had thrown hot oatmeal all over his body. That's a really specific description. I got him to the doctor's office in record time. He was looked at and immediately told he needed to either be airlifted to Children's Hospital in Seattle or we could make the drive and get him there as quickly as we could. We chose to drive him. When we arrived, he was met with a team of doctors that quickly put him in intensive isolation care. Long story short, he was there for a week and no conclusion ever came about. We took him home and tried to get back into the business of raising our son. Shortly thereafter, Lucas started to run high fevers. When I say high, I mean 107, 109, 110. Now, when you get up into these areas, especially in a young child, that's brain damage territory. Um, and of course, the ER doctors were amazed that he never went into convulsions or seizures, which probably means the temperatures really weren't that high. But we'll just, for the sake of her post, we'll say we believe her that he had super high temperatures, high enough to cause brain damage over a period of several days. We spent hours trying to cool him down in ice baths. They poked and prodded, did spinal taps on his tiny body. He endured all of this and still managed to smile now and then. I look back and wonder, did this cause his mental illness? Most likely not. Most likely it just caused straight up brain damage, which can trigger mental illness, but it may just be that he's just straight up brain damaged. I had very long 28 hours and hard labor and forceps were used to bring him into the world. And I look back and wonder, did this cause mental illness? Well, that can also cause brain damage if they fuck up with the forceps or if his oxygen was low or anything. He continued to bring joy into our lives and was soon joined by a brother, Seth, when he was 2 years old. I worried for 9 months. How could I ever love a baby as much as I loved Lucas? The moment Seth was born, all those worries flew out the window, and I remember I thought to myself, wow, how lucky I am to get to love this deeply twice. Although Seth was equally loved, he was far from a perfect baby. He catnapped around the clock for very short periods of time, where Lucas took a 2 hour nap in the morning, a 2 hour nap in the afternoon, and went to bed and slept all night. Seth cried as much as Lucas smiled. I had terrible postpartum depression, and my marriage was taking its toll. Weird wording. This was a scary time in my life, and I wasn't sure I was strong enough to either make things work or leave and make my own way in the world. I chose the latter when the boys were 3 and almost 5. It was the healthiest thing for everyone involved. The boys seemed to adjust very easily and quickly, and my ex husband and I tried to co parent the best we could. Was it perfect? No, 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 but we did try. Now we get into Lucas's childhood, and this is where it gets weird, and you can see these sorts of behaviors in him as an adult, trying to interact with other people. Lucas was an extremely shy little boy and did not make friends in school easily. He would become paralyzed with fear if he was asked to a birthday party or to participate in a group setting. We took him to counselors to try to learn what was wrong and how to help him help himself. I carried a great deal of guilt and often asked myself, what am I doing wrong? I knew I loved him and would lay down my life for him, but was I a good parent? I think some of my insecurities led to Lucas's insecurities, and to this day I carry that guilt. I remember when Lucas was in first grade, his teacher was smitten with those who lived on the hill, assuming that's a richer part of the area they lived in, and did her best to ignore those that lived somewhere else. At his first conference, she said Lucas was in no way Mr. Popular and that the other kids didn't really like him. I was crushed. I wanted to scoop my son up and run and never look back. I mean, that's okay. That's a fair reaction to a teacher telling you, like, nobody likes your kid. He's weird. So I can't blame her for that kind of reaction. I probably have that kind of reaction too if that was my kid, but I'd also, work on helping my kid develop some social skills as well and not just tell him it was everybody else's fault. When he was in the fourth grade, he loved a little girl to the moon and back. You can see foreshadowing here. He was going to marry her and live happily ever after. This same little girl had a birthday party and handed out invitations for her birthday party to everyone in the class except Lucas. So, bitchy popular girl, it happens. I was equally livid and heartbroken for my beautiful son. I called and asked the teacher why she would ever allow that to happen, and she claimed she had no idea that it happened. I cannot tell you the hurt Lucas felt along with the embarrassment. Taking him for an ice cream cone and a trip to the park didn't even help. So here's where he starts to learn that when he feels big feelings, that food comforts him. Food takes that away. Food is a soother. She taught him to soothe with food. And that's what he still does. If you ever notice when he hits his depressive funks, he just gorges himself when he's in a particularly bad mental state. That is an eating disorder. And that was taught as a coping mechanism for social rejection or hurt feelings. So, way to go, mom. Many of the parents of his classmates said if they knew she had done that, their children would not have been allowed to the party. That's what parents say in hindsight. My guess is they didn't want your kid there either because he probably was weird as fuck and kind of freaked out the other kids. When Lucas was in sixth grade, his dad and stepmom told him he could have a Halloween party at their house and he could invite as many kids as he wanted. He invited everyone in the class and was so excited. After the invites were out, the same little girl mentioned above decided she was going to have a Halloween party. Most of the class went to her party, and only 3 buddies came to Lucas's party. His dad and stepmom made it fun and exciting for the 4 of them, but you can't tell me things like that don't scar a person's soul, and that's the only entry that we have. I mean, yeah, fair enough, but look, kids are fucking mean. That's not excusing being an actual asshole to other kids. I'm coming from the perspective of somebody who was the target of people like that throughout elementary, middle, and high school, and only learned to get away from it because I learned how to play the system and work with the faculty and use that against the students. And that started to work because they could come after me, but if they came after me, then the administration got involved and then their parents got involved. And it never really ended well for the other students at that point. So by my senior year, I was pretty much left alone. But honestly, through middle school and most of high school, yeah, I was the weird kid. But whatever, I was the weird kid. I also didn't have parents that they told me it wasn't my fault and that I was perfect in every way. And they basically just kind of taught me how to deal with social situations and to figure out like, hey, not everyone's gonna like you, and that's okay. If somebody doesn't like you, don't waste your fucking time on them. Focus on the people who do. Lucas never got that memo because he continually focuses on trying to catch the attention of people who don't like him, like every single millennial and now Gen Z woman. I don't like you, dude. You're creepy. You're weird. You've been creepy and weird since you were in elementary school. That's what your mom says anyway. So, yeah, that's the one surviving blog post. I don't know if she ever made any more blog posts, but the only one that ever got archived was that particular one. And it does, if you're assuming you take it with a grain of salt of a mother looking at her kid through her eyes of it, it probably is a bit accurate with the way she remembers Lucas as a kid. And the fact that Lucas gets really pissed off when this particular blog post gets brought up tells me it's pretty true because he tends to get real defensive and real pissed real fast if you hit something really close to the mark with him. So, yeah, basically, Lucas's mom had to say about Lucas was he was a fucked up weird kid that nobody liked, and we just fed him ice cream and tried to make him feel good about himself, and that's, well, you see where that landed him. Nowhere good. Well, at least she's got other kids that turned out reasonably okay. But next, I kind of wanted to do a few memes. I know Walter usually does those sort of things, but these are just really funny, and I want to do them because I'm avoiding doing housework. So this first one here is Lucas making a creepy ass smile with his eyes. He has no concept of decent lighting or how to take a selfie. Anyway, says, tell me how Candyland improves a child. Hey kids, it's non-thinking, unlike everything else you'll experience for 100 years. Well, I mean, Candyland's a game meant for little kids. It's meant to teach them how to count, how to play together with other kids and be friendly, how to move around a board in a reasonably strategic way for a game that's meant for little kids. And it teaches them, I mean, honestly, they're moving pieces around. It teaches them fine motor skills. It teaches them some critical thinking skills, having to think ahead. It's not an educational game, but for the kids who are in the age group it's meant for, it certainly does teach them skills. Lucas has got the brain of a 3-year-old, so I wouldn't expect him to get it. And this next one is Lucas sitting in, I don't know, it looks like either a trash can or a car or something. It's probably someplace in Malakoff. Maybe he's on the bus. I don't care if you're rich or poor. I do care that you live on a bus route and still choose to drive when we're facing an ecological collapse. Shame on you for the rest of your days. Okay, first of all, chuckle fuck. Just because you live on a bus line doesn't mean that bus line goes everywhere you need to go. Sometimes the bus line that you live near it requires 2 or 3 transfers to get to the bus line that goes to where you need to go. And that can get expensive and not to mention time consuming. Buses also pollute. The biggest polluters in the world are not average consumers, they're large corporations and military industrial complexes, and as well as like coal fired power, things like that. Not the individual who chooses to carpool, ride in a car, or take an Uber instead of the goddamn bus. Get off your high horse. And up next, we've got him making one of those faces where he's kind of got all pop-eyed. The only thing I've ever seen Christians worship is money. This isn't even for the text. I'm just like fascinated by the nasty, hairy, ball sacky looking thing poking out from under his mask there. You, fucking you, like Cartman in 30 years. Oh, and then we've got Lucas back in the car, bus thing, whatever he's in. I need a mate. Are you down with Generation Z? I'm down with Generation Z. Nobody's down with you, Lucas. At least you shaved the pubes off of your waddle. And then we've got him doing the serial killer look at the camera. I always enjoy that serial killer look. I think he's supposed to look serious, like he's supposed to be all deep and intense, but he just looks like he's going to shank you. It doesn't take lots of money to be happy. For me, it would just take a really great girlfriend. Well, we've seen the DMs leaked of girls you were trying to date or girls you thought you were dating. You're really fucking mean to them. You're controlling. You're abusive. You tell them what to say. You freak out if they don't talk to you every second of the day. You freak out if they don't do exactly what you want. You start demanding they tell you that they love you. I mean, you told one girl to cut her finger off at one point. Nobody's going to date you. You're an abusive shit sack. Nobody wants that. Literally, nobody wants that. You are a genetic cul-de-sac. You are going to die alone. And this one's my personal favorite. I can't shave without looking like I fought off a bear. Okay, dude, you're 42. You're a 42-year-old man. You have presumably been shaving fairly regularly most of your life. What the fuck? You're going to blame a cheap razor, and I know that because I saw that Instagram comment probably before you deleted it. But here's the thing. I've been dirt ass poor too, and I have had to shave with dull as fuck single blade Bic disposable razors. And even I have never sliced my face up like that. You look like you tried to shave with a cheese grater. Use your little fine manual dexterity if your sausage fingers can handle it, or can you not feel your fingertips because of the diabetic neuropathy at this point? Even if the razor's dull, that doesn't mean you gouge it across your skin like you're trying to rip up skin and hair. Why am I trying to teach you how to shave? You're 42, you don't know how to shave. Probably MRSA sores are half of those anyway. And look, you missed, it's obvious you missed, even looking at it, you missed huge patches of hair. Like cutting yourself up like an idiot who doesn't know how to handle a razor at 42 is one thing, but then you miss huge patches and don't even go back and get them. Does Malin Place not provide you with fresh razors, even if they're cheap? Because even if they're cheap, if they're sharp, they'll work if you know how to hold them and handle them and angle the blade. Or are you just like dry shaving and wondering what the hell's going on? I feel like you shave the way you said, same way you would like fuck somebody, is just completely dry and then wonder what the problem is. You don't look like you fought off a bear. You look like you got into daddy's first shaving kit at the age of 6 and didn't know what the fuck you were doing. But you're 42. This is not acceptable. This is not acceptable on any level. This is a basic adult skill. You have both of your hands and you don't have any neuromuscular disorders. You're just disgusting and lazy. Like a bear. You couldn't fight up. Learn to shave. Maybe somebody else there can teach you how to use a razor like a big boy. Do I even have any more of these? I hope that was the last one. Was it the last one? Yes. No. Thank Christ, yes. Glad I didn't save more than a few of those. Those are awful. That shaving one really should not piss me off as much as it is. But he tried blaming a dull single razor, and I have been shaving with single razors for years. And occasionally I do let them get too dull because I'm lazy as shit. But even I have never cut my face up that badly. Like, how do you get to be? How are you a cis man? You get to be 40 fucking 2 years old as a cisgendered man and not know how to shave. Just like, but yeah, no, he'd be a great father figure. He can do all the basics of hygiene for himself, like not showering for weeks, carving up his face and still missing good chunks of the hair, not grooming, not brushing his teeth, perfect man. And on top of that, he's got the foot casts over his rotting diabetic feet. Just get in fucking line at Malin Place. You could adopt him and take him home today. Call him a rescue. Say you got him from an abusive situation. And then just maybe take him somewhere to be put down or something like the nasty dog he is. He should probably at least be neutered. How does he put these things out looking like? How does he look at these memes that he puts out? And I'm not even talking about the text of the memes at this point. I'm just talking about the pictures of himself that he uses. Like, who he can see himself in the phone screen. Who takes pictures like that and looks at it and goes, "Oh man, yeah, I look great. I'm gonna post this." He desperately needs to get some glasses back if he thinks he looks good in any of those photos. It's just laughably sad. I'm sure Myrna is so proud of her beautiful boy, Lucas. And that's maybe why she just sends him like $30 board game bullshit because she knows he'll like it and he's never going to do anything with it or his life. Okay, I'm done looking at Lucas's face now. I'm going to probably get back to the chores I was supposed to do 20 odd minutes ago.
As an older guy interested in younger males and a libtard or whatever you want to call me,